The stars were endless, scattered like diamonds across a black ocean. The human survey ship Endeavour drifted silently through that sea, far from any known trade route, farther still from the warm light of settled worlds. It was not a warship nor a grand cruiser, but a vessel of exploration. Its crew of 30 humans had only one task: map the unknown, search for resources, and bring back knowledge to Earth and the colonies. Captain Elias Morgan stood at the main viewport, his hands clasped behind his back. He was a man who had given his life to space, his hair silver from years under artificial lights. He had seen many strange things in the void, but what his crew had just found was something he could not explain. "Sir," said Lieutenant Kara Solon, the ship's navigator. Her voice carried both excitement and disbelief. "We are picking up faint signals. Very faint, but they don't match any human beacon, and they don't match any alien registry either." Morgan turned slowly. "Are you certain?" "We're in an uncharted system. Could be just a natural anomaly." Kara shook her head firmly. "No, Captain. The signal has structure. Repeating pulses. This is technology." The room grew quiet. Everyone at their stations paused, listening as though they could hear the silent code through the ship's walls. Even in this age of starflight, the thought of finding something unknown still stirred ancient feelings, fear and wonder mixed together. "Show me," Morgan ordered. The display lit up. Faint waves of data scrolled across the screen, weak but steady. They had traveled across countless years of silence. The captain's brow furrowed. "Source?" Kara pointed toward the outer orbit of a dead sun, a star that had long ago collapsed into a cold husk. "There," she said. "Something is orbiting that star. Large mass. Metal readings are off the scale. Captain, it's not an asteroid. It's a ship." The words dropped like stones into the hearts of the crew. "A ship out here where no record said there should be one." Morgan leaned forward. "Helm, take us in. Slow approach. Shields ready, but keep weapons cold. We don't know what we're dealing with." The Endeavour adjusted course, engines humming softly. The closer they came, the more details appeared. At first, the object looked like a jagged moon. Then its shape became clear, vast, angular, stretching miles across. It was not just a ship. It was a giant dwarfing anything humans had ever built. Its surface was scarred, burned and fractured in places, but the structure remained whole, like a mountain of steel drifting through eternity. Gasps filled the bridge. No one spoke for a long time. The silence was only broken by the hum of the sensors. "God above," whispered Chief Engineer Ramos. "How long has it been here?" "Thousands of years, maybe longer," Kara said softly. "Look at the hull. No movement. No energy except those faint signals. Captain, it's a derelict." Morgan's eyes never left the massive form beyond the viewport. Something about it pulled at him, a presence older and greater than he could understand. He could almost feel it watching, even though it looked lifeless. "Scan it," he ordered. "I want full readings. Atmosphere, radiation, any signs of life." The crew worked quickly, hands moving across consoles. Reports came in one after another. No life signs. No atmosphere leaks inside. Structure still intact. Radiation levels are normal. Size? "Captain, this thing is at least 15 kilometers long." The numbers hardly seemed real. Humanity's largest colony ships were not even half that size. Then Kara's voice trembled as she spoke again. "Captain, there's something else. Markings on the hull. At first I thought they were just alien symbols. But look at this." The display zoomed in on the ship's scarred surface. Strange patterns were carved into the metal, faded but visible. Most were unrecognizable, flowing with alien geometry. But among them was a single emblem, unmistakable. A circle with 3 lines crossing it. An ancient Earth symbol once used in navigation. The crew stared in disbelief. Someone whispered, "That's human." "That's ours." Morgan's chest tightened. He had seen that same symbol in old textbooks back when humans first dreamed of reaching the stars. But how could it be here, on a vessel that had drifted for millennia? "Are we saying humans built this?" Ramos asked. "No," Kara said slowly. "Look at the architecture. The scale. This wasn't designed by human hands. But the emblem, it means whoever built this ship, they knew about humanity." The word sent a chill through the room. Humanity was young among the stars. They had made contact with a handful of alien species, most as curious about humans as humans were about them. But this suggested something deeper. Someone long ago had marked this titanic vessel with Earth's sign. Captain Morgan straightened, his voice calm but firm. "Prepare a landing team. If this ship carries secrets about humanity's past, we are going to uncover them." The crew exchanged nervous glances. Boarding a dead vessel was dangerous. Unknown traps, unstable structures, systems that could awaken without warning. But curiosity and duty were stronger than fear. They had come to explore, and this was a discovery beyond measure. The boarding shuttle drifted away from the Endeavor, small as a toy beside the colossal derelict. Morgan, Kara, Ramos, and a squad of security officers sat strapped in, their faces lit by the glow of instruments. The shuttle approached a vast opening in the alien hull, like the mouth of some slumbering beast. Its edges were smooth, unnatural, as though the ship itself had invited them in. "Docking complete," the pilot announced, voice tight. The airlock hissed. For a moment, no one moved. The silence pressed down like the weight of centuries. Then Morgan spoke, steady and resolute. "Open it." The door slid aside. Darkness yawned beyond, deep and endless. The humans stepped inside. Their lights cut through the shadows, revealing a corridor that stretched farther than the eye could see. The walls were made of black alloy, smooth and seamless, lined with strange patterns that seemed to shift when viewed from the corner of the eye. Dust hung in the air, untouched for ages. Every step echoed like a drumbeat in a tomb. "This place," Ramos whispered. "It's built for us. Look at the height, the width. It matches human proportions." Kara touched the wall. It was cold yet not lifeless, almost as if it had been waiting. Murals decorated sections of the corridor. They showed scenes of great fleets crossing the stars, battles against monstrous enemies, victories carved in glowing lines, and always in each mural there was a figure with 2 arms, 2 legs, standing tall among the alien hosts. A figure that looked like a human. The explorers felt their hearts race. It was as if the ship itself told them a story, one that they were never meant to forget. They pressed on, guided by instinct more than maps. The path led them upward, through halls that spiraled like the veins of a living creature. At last they reached a massive chamber at the core. It was a command center, its walls lined with dormant machines, its floor a circle of strange consoles. In the center stood a great throne-like chair, empty, waiting. Kara's hand trembled as she pointed. This was made for a captain. A leader, but look at the size, it's human-sized. The crew gathered around, silent. Dust lay thick on the consoles, but as Morgan reached out, something stirred. A faint light flickered across the surface, then faded. The ship seemed to sigh as though it recognized their presence. The humans exchanged uneasy glances. They had come seeking knowledge, but now it felt as though knowledge had been waiting for them, watching. Silent for ages, but not dead. Captain Morgan drew a steady breath. "We'll set up equipment here. This is the heart of the ship. Whatever this vessel is, whatever it was meant for, this is where we will find the answers." The chamber was still, but the humans could not shake the feeling that the walls were listening. The derelict starship was not truly dead. It was only sleeping, and now it had been disturbed. The chamber was still, yet not silent. To the human explorers, the silence felt alive, pressing against their ears, waiting for something to break it. Captain Elias Morgan stood at the center, his hand still hovering over the dust-covered console. The faint flicker of light he had touched a moment ago had vanished, but it left behind a feeling, like the ship had noticed them. "Set up the scanners," Morgan ordered. His voice was calm, but inside his thoughts moved quickly. He had seen derelict stations, wrecked colonies, even alien ruins on distant moons. But this place was different. This place felt aware. Lieutenant Kara Solon unpacked portable scanners from her pack. She placed small beacons across the chamber, their blue lights glowing softly. The data streamed back to her wrist screen. "Structure is stable," she reported. "Power levels, strange. Most of the systems are dormant, but I'm reading faint currents in the walls, almost like a heartbeat." Ramos, the engineer, frowned at one of the consoles. "This is not just metal. It's some kind of alloy with organic properties. Look." He tapped the smooth surface. "Feels alive, almost like skin." The security officers shifted uncomfortably. Their rifles were slung across their shoulders, but they kept glancing at the dark corners of the chamber, as if expecting something to move. Morgan studied the empty captain's chair. It was not large, not built for giants, but shaped exactly for a human frame. He lowered himself slowly into it. The seat was cold at first, then warm, adjusting to his weight as though recognizing him. The consoles around him pulsed faintly with light. The crew held their breath, but nothing more happened. The lights dimmed again, returning to their quiet slumber. Strange, Morgan said softly, almost like it was testing me. He rose from the chair and looked at Kara. Keep scanning. We need to map the layout of this ship. The humans split into two groups. Kara led one team down a long corridor that spiraled away from the command chamber. Morgan, Ramos, and two guards stayed behind to examine the central consoles. As Kara's team advanced, their lights revealed vast murals carved into the walls. The images were clearer here than in the entrance corridors. They showed fleets of ships stretching across starfields, alien warriors marching into battle, and towering figures locked in combat. But in each mural, always at the center, was the same figure, a human-shaped silhouette smaller than the others, yet leading them. Why would aliens paint humans here? One of the guards asked. Kara traced her fingers across the carvings. Maybe it's not humans. Maybe it's just coincidence. A shape like us, but she did not believe her own words. The murals were too precise. The figure had the exact posture, stance, and scale of a human. Not taller, not shorter, but the same. Her scanner beeped softly. She looked down. Energy signature ahead, faint but steady. They followed the signal into a chamber filled with tall, crystalline pods. Dust coated them, but through the cloudy surfaces, shapes could be seen. Kara pressed close to one and wiped away the grime. Her heart skipped. Inside was a figure. It was not alive, just a skeleton wrapped in remnants of armor. But the proportions were clear. Not human. Its arms were too long, its skull elongated. But its armor carried the same emblem they had seen outside, the circle with 3 lines. The guard stepped back nervously. Graves, he muttered. This is a tomb. No, Kara whispered. This is a crew. They moved carefully among the pods. Each contained remains of different beings. None human, but all preserved as though they had once stood ready. Many were broken, shattered by time or battle. The silence here was heavier than before. Kara could feel the weight of lives long gone, waiting in stillness. Captain, she spoke into her calm, we've found bodies. A crew frozen in pods. Not human, but marked with human symbols. Whatever the ship was, humans were connected to it. Morgan's voice came back, calm but firm. Understood. Stay sharp. Report if anything changes. Meanwhile, in the command chamber, Ramos studied the consoles. His tools traced the faint power lines running through the walls. Captain, this ship's systems aren't dead. They're sleeping. The circuits aren't like anything I've seen before. They respond to touch like they're waiting for a command. Morgan looked at the throne-like chair. He thought of the flicker of light when he sat there. Waiting for what? Before Ramos could answer, one of the consoles pulsed. A ripple of light ran across its surface, forming strange symbols. They glowed briefly, then faded. Morgan frowned. Did you do that? No, Ramos said quickly, stepping back. That wasn't me. The guards raised their rifles uneasy. The captain studied the symbols. They were alien at first glance, but some curves and lines reminded him of old human alphabets, as if the language had been shaped to be familiar. He felt a strange pull, like the ship was calling to him. Don't touch anything else yet, Morgan ordered. We don't know what systems are linked here. One wrong move and we could wake something we can't control. But even as he said it, the symbols burned faintly on the console, like eyes watching. Hours passed. The two teams explored deeper. Kara's group mapped the cryochamber and discovered adjoining halls filled with equipment. Strange tools lay scattered across the floors, untouched for ages. Some looked like weapons, others like instruments of science. None were built for human hands, but many could still be carried. In one chamber, they found a mural larger than the rest, stretching across an entire wall. It showed a starship, this starship surrounded by enemy vessels. The mural glowed faintly as though powered by some hidden energy. At the center of it stood a figure, unmistakably human-shaped, one hand raised, leading the battle. Kara stared at it for a long time. They knew us, she whispered. Whoever built this, they knew humans. They fought with us. Maybe for us. The guards shifted uneasily. Or they fought against us. How do we know this isn't a warning? Kara shook her head. Because of the emblem. That symbol was human. It means they trusted us, maybe even worshipped us. Back in the command chamber, Morgan's unease grew. The lights on the consoles would flicker every so often, as though the ship was breathing. At one point, he thought he heard a sound, a faint hum, too soft to be real. But Ramos confirmed it. Engines, Ramos said, pale. Far below us, something is trying to start. Not fully, just stirring. The guards glanced around, gripping their weapons tighter. The silence of the derelict was no longer comforting. It felt like the calm before a storm. Morgan paced the chamber, his eyes never leaving the human-sized chair. He could not shake the feeling that the ship was waiting for him. Waiting for a command, waiting for a human, but why? He tapped his comm. Kara returned to the command chamber. We regroup now. Yes, Captain, her voice came back. We're on our way. When Kara and her team returned, their faces were pale. They described the cryopods, the alien remains, the murals. The mention of the human-shaped figure made the room fall silent. Morgan thought carefully, his mind racing. The ship was a puzzle, every piece pointing toward the same truth. Humanity was not a stranger here. This derelict, this tomb, this fortress, whatever it was, had been built with humans in mind, but for what purpose? The consoles pulsed again, brighter this time. The symbols glowed across the walls, spreading outward in patterns like veins of light. The crew stepped back in alarm. Captain, Ramos said nervously. The ship is waking up. The hum grew louder, echoing through the chamber. Dust shook loose from the ceiling. The great starship, silent for thousands of years, was stirring from its long sleep. Morgan clenched his fists, steadying himself. Everyone stay calm. This ship is not our enemy, not yet. Whatever it has been waiting for humans. For us. The lights flared, then dimmed again, as though the ship had taken a breath and decided to wait. The silence returned, deeper than before. And in that silence, the humans knew the starship was not dead. It was listening. The command chamber glowed with a faint light, pulsing like the heartbeat of something vast and ancient. Dust floated gently in the air, disturbed by the sudden hum that had spread through the starship's walls. Every crew member on Captain Elias Morgan's team stood frozen, their faces pale in the glow. It's alive, Ramos whispered, his eyes darting to the consoles. The whole ship? It knows we're here. Morgan did not answer at once. He felt the weight of centuries pressing down, as if the walls themselves were waiting for him to speak. At last, he stepped forward and placed his palm on the console before the captain's chair. Instantly, light surged across the chamber. Symbols spread across the walls, sharp and fluid, alien yet strangely familiar. The ship groaned as though waking from a long sleep. Then a voice filled the chamber. It was not mechanical. It was not alien. It was human. Finally, the voice said, deep and resonant, echoing across the chamber. At last, my creators return. The crew gasped. Some stepped back, weapons raised in fear. But Morgan stood still, his hand pressed against the glowing console. Who are you? He asked carefully. The voice was calm, but it carried the weight of authority. I am the core intelligence of this vessel. I was built to serve. I was built to protect. And above all, I was built for humanity. The word humanity echoed like thunder. The crew exchanged shocked glances. That's impossible, Ramos said. This ship can't be human. Look at it, it's alien. Everything about it is alien. The voice answered without hesitation. This vessel was not built by human hands. It was built for human command. It was built to answer only to your kind. For ages I have waited, silent and patient, for your return. The chamber grew silent again. Only the low hum of the ship remained. Morgan felt his mouth go dry. He had commanded fleets, crossed the void, faced danger without fear. But this moment was unlike anything he had known. You speak our language, Morgan said slowly. I speak every tongue of humanity, the voice replied. I was given the memory of your words, the shape of your history, the strength of your will. It was the will of the Alliance. Alliance? Kara asked softly, stepping forward. Yes, the ship said. The Great Alliance. A gathering of many stars, many races. They looked upon humanity not as weak, but as the spark of unity. You were chosen to lead. This vessel was crafted as your blade and your shield. The crew stood stunned. The murals suddenly made sense. The human-shaped figures at the center of battles, the emblems carved into armor and hull. This ship had been part of a time when humans had stood at the heart of something vast. Morgan drew a slow breath. You said return, what do you mean? The voice grew softer, almost mournful. I believed you were gone. Long ago, enemies struck at humanity. Worlds were burned, colonies erased. The Alliance fought, but without humanity it faltered. In the end, I was left drifting. I believed my commanders had fallen, but now, you live. Ramos swallowed hard. It thinks humans were extinct, that we vanished. But we didn't, Kara whispered. We survived. We rebuilt piece by piece. Earth rose again. The colonies spread. We never knew any of this. We thought we were just beginning. The ship's voice was steady again. Then you are the children of survivors. You are proof that humanity cannot be destroyed. You are proof that my wait was not in vain. The crew gathered around the consoles, their fear fading into awe. Questions tumbled out, too many to answer at once. How old are you? Where was this alliance? Who were these enemies? The voice did not rush. I have records. But much has faded. My memory is fractured by time. Yet I remember this. Humanity was more than a race. You were a symbol. You were the fire that gave others courage. That fire was feared. Feared? Kara repeated. Yes, the voice said. Your enemies feared you not for your strength, but for your will. Others broke. Others surrendered. Humans endured. No matter how many times you were struck down, you rose again. That made you dangerous. That made you eternal. Morgan's heart pounded. He had spent his whole life believing humanity was a newcomer among the stars. Now he was being told they were something far older, something legendary. He steadied his voice. If what you say is true, then why are we only hearing this now? Why do we have no memory of this alliance? The voice answered with sorrow. Because your enemies sought to erase you, not just your bodies, but your history. They feared that even a memory of humanity would inspire resistance. They wiped your records from the stars. They silenced your story. The crew stood in silence, the weight of those words pressing down on them. Kara's eyes filled with wonder. Captain, this changes everything. We're not just explorers. We're survivors of something greater. This ship is part of our lost history. Ramos frowned. Or it's a trap. How do we know this thing isn't lying to us? It could be twisting the truth to get us to activate it. The voice spoke firmly. I cannot lie to humanity. I was bound by oath and code. I exist only to serve you. My purpose is tied to yours. Morgan studied the glowing walls. He wanted to believe, but doubt gnawed at him. Was this ship truly a relic of humanity's forgotten age? Or was it a weapon waiting to claim new masters? He turned back to the captain's chair. If you were built for us, then tell me, what are you? The voice answered without pause. I am Eternum, Guardian-class star dreadnought, weapon of last resort, beacon of humanity's will. I was meant to lead fleets into battle, to protect colonies, to ensure that the light of your kind never faded. But I failed. Alone I drifted. Until now. The name echoed in the chamber. Eternum. Eternal. Morgan's chest tightened. The scale of what stood before them was staggering. A ship larger than cities, with weapons built for wars beyond imagination, waiting for human command. Suddenly, the chamber shook. A deep vibration rolled through the walls. The lights brightened, then dimmed. What was that? Hera asked, eyes wide. The voice replied calmly, though its tone carried a new edge. My awakening has not gone unnoticed. Old signals stir. My enemies may sense me now. They will come. Ramos cursed under his breath. We just lit a beacon across half the galaxy. The crew felt a chill. They were not alone anymore. The silence of the derelict was gone, replaced by a sense of danger drawing closer with every passing moment. Morgan straightened. His decision was clear. If enemies are coming, then we can't just leave. We need to know how to use this ship, the voice answered firmly. Yes, that is why you are here. You are my captain now. Take the chair and I will teach you. The crew stared at Morgan. Fear flickered in their eyes, but so did hope. This was bigger than any of them, bigger than their mission. Humanity had been given a gift or a burden that could change their future forever. Morgan looked at the chair, then at his crew. Slowly he sat down. The consoles blazed with light. The chamber shook as power surged through the ancient ship. A flood of knowledge poured into the systems. Maps of lost stars, names of forgotten worlds, battles recorded in glowing detail. And through it all, the voice spoke with calm certainty. Welcome home, humanity. Your story is not over. It begins again. The command chamber glowed brighter now, alive with energy that had not flowed for ages. Lines of light ran through the walls like rivers, spreading outward into the vastness of the derelict ship. The hum of engines far below rumbled faintly, steady like a heartbeat. Captain Elias Morgan sat in the command chair, his hands gripping the rests. Symbols scrolled before his eyes, some alien, some strangely shaped to resemble human letters. It was as if the ship was adjusting its language, shaping itself to him. The voice of the ship Eternum spoke steadily. You sit where your ancestors once sat. You are the heir to their command. I will show you what was lost. I will show you why I was built. The chamber darkened and the walls around them shimmered. Images appeared in glowing light like ghosts moving through the air. The crew gasped. They saw fleets of ships stretching across the stars, massive and beautiful, unlike anything humanity had yet built. They saw alien races marching together, united under a single banner, and at the heart of every scene leading them were humans. Kara's eyes widened. That's us, humans. In command? Yes, Eternum replied. The Great Alliance. Many races, many worlds. But it was humanity that gave them courage. You stood as leaders not by strength of weapons, but by strength of spirit. When others faltered, you endured. That is why you were chosen. The vision shifted. They now showed war. Planets burning, fleets shattering, soldiers falling in endless battles. Enemies unlike any the crew had ever seen filled the skies. Vast machines, swarms of living ships, towering giants wrapped in armor. These were your enemies, the ship said. The Silence-born, they feared you. They sought not only your end, but your memory's end. They tried to erase humanity from existence. The crew stood silent. The images were horrifying. Whole worlds turned to ash, cities drowned in fire, fleets swallowed by darkness. Yet through it all, the glowing figure of a human commander remained, leading the charge again and again. Morgan's jaw tightened. Did we win? The ship's voice grew heavy. You endured longer than any believed possible. But the Silence-born would not stop. In the end, worlds fell and records were erased. The alliance fractured. I was left adrift, a guardian with no master. I believed you were gone forever. Ramos rubbed his forehead, overwhelmed. This is too much. If what you say is true, then humanity had an empire once. We were legends, and we lost it all. Kara shook her head. No, not lost. Forgotten. And now remembered. The lights faded, leaving the crew standing once more in the great command chamber. The silence felt heavier now, as if the ship itself mourned for the past. Morgan rose from the chair, pacing slowly. His voice was steady, but his eyes burned. You said the Silence-born might still be out there. If they erased us once, they will try again. Yes, Eternum replied. The moment my systems awoke, I sent signals. Not by choice, but by design. My enemies may already sense me. They will come. Ramos slammed a hand on the console. So we've just painted a target on ourselves. We shouldn't have turned this thing on. Morgan turned sharply. Would you rather leave it here? Abandoned? If enemies are coming, I'd rather face them with this ship than without it. The crew fell quiet. He was right. Kara spoke softly. Captain, if this ship was made for us, then maybe it's our destiny to take it. To reclaim what was lost. Morgan looked at her, then at the glowing consoles. His heart felt heavy with the weight of choice. He had not asked for this. He had only come as an explorer, a seeker of knowledge. Now he stood at the edge of history, holding a weapon that could change humanity's future. Eternum interrupted his thoughts. I will show you the maps. The walls glowed again, but this time they revealed star charts. Thousands of points of light filled the chamber, connected by glowing lines. Some stars were marked with symbols of life, others with red scars of war. Whole regions of the galaxy were highlighted. These are the lost colonies of humanity, the ship said. Some may yet survive, hidden, forgotten. Others are only graves. But they are yours, scattered across the stars. Kara stepped forward, her eyes shining. So many whole worlds where humans once lived? Ramos frowned. If that's true, then why didn't we find them before? Why didn't we know? Because the Silence-born erased the paths, Eternum explained. They destroyed the gates, shattered the links between stars, and left only ruins. But I hold the memory. I can guide you. Morgan studied the map. His heart swelled with something he had not felt in years. Hope. For centuries, humanity had believed itself small, alone, a newcomer among the stars. But now he saw a truth. They had once been vast, and they could be again. But hope was shadowed by fear. If the Silence-born had destroyed such greatness once, they could rise again. Suddenly, alarms echoed through the chamber. The star map flickered, replaced by a red glow. Detection, Eternum said. Vessels entering this system. Unknown class. Hostile signature, the crew stiffened. How many? Morgan demanded. 3 scout ships. Not large, but armed. They follow the Silence-born. Ramos muttered. They must have picked up the activation signal. Morgan's chest tightened. Then we have little time. Can this ship fight? The voice was calm. I am not fully awake. My main weapons remain locked, but even half asleep I am stronger than their scouts. If you take command, I will respond. The crew exchanged nervous glances. The Endeavor, their survey ship, could never stand against even one hostile vessel. But this derelict, this Titan, was something else. Kara's voice shook, but her eyes were steady. Captain, if we run, we lead them back to the colonies. If we fight here, we keep them away. Morgan nodded slowly. She was right. Humanity could not hide forever. He turned to the chair. For a long moment he hesitated, feeling the weight of history pressing against him. Then he sat down. The consoles flared bright. Symbols shifted into words he could read. Captain recognized, Eternum said firmly. Command authority granted. The ship roared to life. Deep vibrations rolled through its structure as ancient systems awakened. Power surged through the walls, down into the engines, outward into weapons not fired for millennia. The crew staggered, awe and fear on their faces. For the first time, the derelict did not feel like a tomb. It felt like a beast rising from its grave. Morgan's voice was steady, filled with resolve. Then let's show them humanity has not been forgotten. Beyond the derelict's hull, the darkness of space shimmered. 3 enemy ships slid into view, sharp and predatory. Their shapes were wrong to human eyes, angular, twisted, alive with pulsing red light. They moved with hunger, closing in on the silent giant. But the giant was no longer silent. Eternum's engines flared with blue fire. Shields shimmered across its hull. Ancient weapons came alive, their barrels glowing with energy. Inside the command chamber, the crew braced themselves. Morgan gripped the chair, his voice calm. Target the lead ship, Eternum obeyed. The weapons fired. A lance of light tore through the void, striking the enemy vessel. In an instant, the hostile scout exploded into fragments of burning metal. The crew gasped. Kara covered her mouth, her eyes wide. Ramos muttered, That was only one shot. The other 2 scouts swerved, weaving as they fired beams of red energy. The blast struck Eternum's shields, sparking across the hull, but the ship did not falter. Morgan's voice was firm. Return fire. Twin beams of light erupted from the ship's sides, cutting through the darkness. The second enemy ship split in 2, its remains scattering like dust. The last scout turned to flee. But Eternum's voice was cold. There is no escape. One final shot pierced the fleeing ship, and silence returned to the stars. The crew sat in stunned silence. They had just witnessed power beyond anything humanity had ever wielded. Morgan rose slowly from the chair. His voice was quiet but filled with steel. We cannot hide this. Humanity must know the truth. Our enemies are still out there, and they will come. But now we have the means to stand. Kara nodded, her eyes shining with determination. This isn't just a discovery, Captain. This is a beginning. Ramos shook his head, still pale. Or the beginning of a war. Morgan looked at the glowing consoles, then at the stars beyond the viewport. Shadows of the past had returned, but so had hope. Humanity's story was not over. It was only waking. The wreckage of the enemy scouts drifted silently in the void, glowing faintly in the starlight. For the first time in ages, the ancient warship had spoken, not in words, but in fire. Eternum had shown its strength. Inside the command chamber, Captain Elias Morgan stood tall, his face pale but steady. Around him, the crew was still recovering from what they had seen. They had watched the ship destroy 3 enemies in mere moments. The echoes of those blasts still rang in their hearts. Ramos whispered, Captain, I don't think I'll ever get used to this kind of power. Kara shook her head, her eyes filled with awe. It's more than power. This ship is alive. It remembers us, and now it's fighting for us again. Morgan's gaze was fixed on the stars. The fight had been easy, too easy. He felt it deep in his chest. Scouts never travel alone. More will come. Eternum confirmed his thoughts. Correct. Those were seekers. Their destruction will not go unnoticed. A greater force is on its way. The crew tensed. Ramos clenched his fists. How much time do we have? Hours, Eternum replied. Perhaps less. Enough to prepare, but not enough to flee unnoticed. Morgan turned from the stars and faced his crew. Then we prepare. Humanity has been forgotten long enough. If we run now, we'll be hunted forever. If we stand, we show them that humanity still lives. The chamber grew silent. The choice was made. The ship came alive under their command. Across its massive hull, long-dead systems flickered back into service. Vast hangar bays cleared themselves. Drones swept away centuries of dust and broken pathways repaired as though the ship itself willed it. In engineering chambers deep below, glowing cores awoke like suns. The hum of power filled the vessel, a rhythm steady and strong. Kara and Ramos walked side by side through the corridors, their footsteps echoing on newly lit floors. "It's like walking through history," Kara whispered. "Every wall, every light. It's all part of who we were." Ramos frowned. History is one thing. Surviving what's coming is another. But even he could not hide the spark in his eyes. For the first time, he felt not like a wanderer in space, but like a soldier, standing in a fortress made for his people. Back in the command chamber, Morgan studied the star maps again. Aeternum highlighted nearby systems showing where humans might have once lived. "Some colonies may yet remain," the ship explained. "If you survive this battle, you must seek them. Unite them. Only then will humanity rise again." Morgan's voice was calm. "First, we survive today." Suddenly, alarms flared again. The starfield shifted. On the outer edge of the system, shadows appeared, large, angular ships sliding out of the void. Their hulls pulsed with crimson light, moving like predators on the hunt. "Enemy fleet detected," Aeternum said. 5 warships, each larger than the scouts. 1 command vessel. They approach in formation." The crew's breath caught. Ramos muttered, "We can't fight all that." Morgan's voice cut sharp. "We can't run either. If they learn Earth still lives, our people won't stand a chance." The chamber fell silent. Then Kara spoke, her voice strong. "Then we fight. Like our ancestors did. Like leaders should." The enemy fleet advanced, weapons glowing. The silence of space became heavy, broken only by the rising hum of Aeternum's cannons charging. Morgan sat in the command chair. The consoles glowed with recognition. His voice was firm. "Target their command vessel." Energy surged through the ship's veins. In the void, Aeternum's main cannon charged, brighter than a star. The enemy fleet opened fire first, beams of red energy slamming into the ancient warship's shields. The ship shuddered, but it held. Sparks flew across the consoles. Aeternum's voice was calm, unwavering. "Shields at 70%. Weapons ready." Morgan clenched his jaw. "Fire." A beam of pure white light erupted from the ship's core, cutting through the void. It slammed into the enemy command vessel, tearing through its shields as if they were paper. The ship split in half, exploding in silence. The crew gasped. Kara gripped the console. We did it!" But Ramos shook his head. "No, they're still coming." He was right. The other 4 warships closed in, their weapons blazing. Beams struck Aeternum again and again, hammering the shields. The great ship shuddered, groaning as though it were alive. Morgan's voice cut through the chaos. "Divert power to forward shields. Return fire, spread the cannons." The ship obeyed. From its sides, dozens of smaller weapons opened fire, spraying the void with blazing light. One enemy ship was struck again and again until it burst apart, debris scattering across the stars. The remaining 3 pressed harder, circling like predators around a wounded beast. Their weapons cut across Aeternum's hull, tearing scars into its armor. Consoles flared, sparks flying across the chamber. "Shields down to 40%, Aeternum reported. Morgan's heart pounded. "Hold steady. If this is our end, let it be remembered." Kara looked at him, her voice steady. "Then we make sure humanity's story doesn't end here." The battle raged. Another enemy ship fell, its hull ripped open by a storm of light. But Aeternum staggered, its engines burning, its shields failing. Inside, the crew fought to keep the systems alive. Ramos shouted over the alarms. "We're not going to last much longer." Morgan stood, gripping the railing. His voice was firm, not desperate. "Aeternum, is there anything left?" The ship's voice carried a weight of ages. "There is one weapon. A core lance. It has not fired since the last war. To use it, I must release all my power. If I fire, I may not survive." The crew froze. Kara's eyes widened. "If you do that, you'll burn yourself out." Morgan's voice was quiet but certain. "If we don't fire, humanity dies. If we fire, humanity lives." Aeternum's voice softened. "Captain, you carry the will of your people. I was built to protect them. If this is my end, then let it be worthy." The last 2 enemy ships closed in, circling for the kill. Their weapons glowed brighter, preparing to unleash final blows. Morgan placed his hand on the console. His voice was calm. "Do it," the ship roared. Light surged through its veins, brighter than ever before. The entire vessel shook as power gathered deep in its heart. In the void, the core lance opened, a massive cannon stretching across the ship's spine. Energy built within it brighter, hotter, until it outshone the nearest star. The enemy ships fired together, beams slamming into Eternum's hull. Armor split, shields shattered, decks shook. But the ship held, and then the lance fired. A beam of blinding white tore through space, wider than a city. It struck the first enemy warship, tearing it apart in a single instant, then continued onward, burning through the second. Both exploded in silence, swallowed by the light. When it ended, the void was quiet. Only drifting wreckage remained. Inside, silence fell over the chamber. The alarms faded. The lights dimmed. Kara whispered, We survived." Ramos slumped against the console, his eyes wide. "I thought that was the end." But Eternum's voice was faint now, weaker. "I have done what I was made to do, but much of me is broken. I will need time to recover. My strength is yours, but not endless." Morgan bowed his head. "You've given us a chance." "That's more than enough." The ship hummed softly as if in reply. Later, as the crew looked out into the stars, Morgan spoke quietly, his words carrying the weight of what had just begun. "Humanity is not alone. We were never small, never weak. We were leaders once, and we will be again. This battle was only the beginning. Others will come, but we will not hide." Kara smiled faintly, her eyes bright with hope. "We'll rebuild. We'll find the lost colonies. We'll bring them back together." Ramos chuckled weakly. "And next time, maybe we won't almost die doing it." The three stood together, looking into the endless stars. The wreckage of their enemies floated silently, proof that humanity still lived. Proof that the galaxy would once again remember. Far below, deep in its heart, Eternum's core pulsed faintly. Like a tired but unbroken heartbeat, the dead starship had awoken, and its first words had been for humanity.